Hello, welcome back or welcome to the You at Your Best podcast. I'm your host, Morgan. This week's episode is going to be a reflection on perfectionism and maybe some other things, just depending on where I end up going with the episode. I'm going to go ahead and get into it because I don't really have anything else to share, and this is something that I just really want to get off my chest and talk about. I have made it very clear on my podcast that I am someone who struggles with perfectionism, and while I've always known that, I didn't realize how deeply ingrained perfectionism is into every single thing that I do. I, of course, had an idea. I understood that I am perfectionistic with my podcast, with my parenting. I understood that I'm perfectionistic with how people perceive me, with literally everything. But I didn't realize how much that was actually impacting me and possibly people who listen to my podcast. I recently realized that although I think my podcast is so helpful for people, I put myself into this box of I have to be put together 24/7. I have to always have the most perfect advice, the most perfect words, and I'm not helpful or I'm letting people down whenever they listen to my podcast if I don't give the best advice to them, or if I listen back to an episode and I realize that I gave advice that me now wouldn't really give, and I just sometimes can go down this spiral of like, what if I'm a bad person? What if I'm actually really hurting people? What if my podcast isn't helpful, but it causes people to spiral and it causes people to end up worse off than they would have been without my podcast? I have this deep-rooted fear of hurting people or of being a bad person, and that stems from me caring really deeply, but it also stems from this perfectionistic need to be seen as perfect, to be seen as always having my life together, to be able to help other people so that I know that people who are the way that I used to be aren't struggling as deeply as I did on their own. And because of that, I put a lot of pressure on myself for my episodes to be perfect. And there have been times where episodes, listening back, would have been so much better if I wouldn't have taken out parts of those episodes where I was being more honest and more authentic. And although authenticity is very clear in my podcast, there are times whenever I take away that authenticity to try to make the episode a little bit easier to listen to, and I think that's important and that's great, but sometimes I do it to the point to where I feel like the episodes kind of end up being like robotic almost. That's what I've been kind of worrying about a little bit, and it hasn't turned into a spiral, but it's been something that I've had on my mind, and I've just been realizing that my perfectionism could have easily turned me into someone that almost put myself above people and put myself in a place of I don't need help and I don't need anyone to be there for me, but other people need me. And as sad as that is, sometimes for me that feels easier. It feels easier to have people rely on me than to rely on other people, because what if I rely on someone and then they think I'm weird? Or what if I rely on someone and they realize that they can't handle all of who I am? And that's scary. Whenever in my podcast, this podcast is one of the most important things in my life. Truly, I have so many other aspirations in life, but this podcast and my daughter and my boyfriend and our family, those are the two most important things in my life, and they always will be. So this podcast is my soul. This podcast is who I am. This podcast is the mark that I'm going to leave on the world after I'm gone. Hopefully people can still listen to podcasts in the future. And I don't want my podcast to turn into something that's robotic or that causes people to maybe start seeing me as above them instead of seeing me as their peer. And obviously, the more I grow, sometimes that can be inevitable. But I also want it to be very clear that I'm still a person that's trying and working hard and who messes up sometimes. Even whenever I'm scared to share that part of myself, I try to always share that side of myself in my episodes, but at the end of the day, I always make sure that my episodes end in a place that doesn't cause someone to be in a spiral. And perfectionism for me, sometimes my perfectionism is a good thing. Sometimes me being perfectionistic helps me make the right choice. It helps me look at all of the possible outcomes and it helps me with my critical thinking skills. But there are also times where it holds me back out of shame, where I get scared to share certain things. In my last podcast episode, I shared how there are times where my daughter sometimes she would have a bath like every like I would wait like 2 nights and 3 days before she had a bath, and I was like, God, people might listen to that and then think that I'm such a horrible mom, I'm such a bad person. And the entire episode was talking about how to not do that, but I still spiral sometimes. I still worry sometimes. I'm still human. I'm still someone that struggles really deeply with my mental health, even if I don't always talk about it. And I am someone who, even though I don't have any diagnoses of any kind yet, and that's something that I'm still trying to figure out, I am someone who has a brain that is very neurodivergent coded, and I have a lot of OCD-like patterns and behaviors where I worry that I'm somehow hurting someone, or I'm constantly keeping an eye on myself, like constantly making sure that I'm handling every single situation in the most perfect way. And that can be so exhausting. Especially with me being a highly sensitive person, I find that I can't function properly sometimes because I put so much pressure on myself to be perfect that it drains me so much. And like I said, this podcast is so important to me, and this podcast is my entire world, but I often forget that I have to be kind to myself too. And I think although I do a really good job at being vulnerable and authentic on my podcast, I think it is sometimes obvious to my listeners that maybe I do put a lot of pressure on myself, and maybe I do feel this need to be perfect or say things in the most perfect way. Maybe it's obvious that I edit my podcast to sound a little bit robotic without meaning to, because I'm so scared of that vulnerability of messing up whenever I speak. And I've been trying to let those parts stay in sometimes and remember that like it doesn't matter. But my podcast episodes can sometimes be very professional sounding, and I think that's great. But sometimes I just want to make an episode like this where I'm just rambling about random shit that I don't even know where I'm going with this, and I think I keep on repeating myself, and my chest is kind of hurting because I'm feeling really anxious right now because I'm trying to express myself into words that I'm not able to find. Okay, since I was struggling a little bit with talking and I was starting to feel anxious, I took a break for a second and I went to get my journal. I'm going to share a journal entry that I wrote on the 6th of this month. Today's the 17th. And I shared this journal entry on my story, and sharing this journal entry on my story was actually the thing that made me start to really think about, like, what if I'm hurting people by sharing what I say, or what if my podcast is really triggering for people? And I got past that. I realized that my podcast could be really triggering for people who struggle with the deeper emotions, but at the end of the day, I always help people out, and that's really important. I'm someone that will sit with someone in the moment that they're in, but I will also help them out. And I need to learn to be able to do that with myself, to be able to be honest on this podcast and share these parts that I try to hide or I feel like I need to take away. And actually right now I keep on thinking like, maybe I should just stop recording this episode and not put this episode out. Maybe this episode is going to cause someone to spiral, but my entire podcast is helpful towards people. It's okay for me to reflect sometimes. That's a whole point of me having reflection and inside episodes so that I can do this. Okay, but anyways, I'm going to share the journal entry that I wrote. And I want to say that this is a little bit dark, and I know that can be really difficult for people. So if you're listening to this podcast right now and you don't know if you're able to handle that, please leave at this time. Okay, I'm gonna read it now. This state that I'm currently in is brutal. It's exhausting, overwhelming, terrifying, sad. I'm struggling to trust myself. My anxiety is screaming. I don't know how I feel. I want to create, but I don't know how. I'm being unreasonably unkind to myself, constantly monitoring. What if I'm actually a bad person? What if I'm hurting people? Am I even doing anything right? Can I trust myself? Will I accidentally hurt someone? Am I actually a bad mom just convincing myself that I'm good? Am I giving harmful advice on my podcast? What if someone misunderstands what I say, then uses my words to inflict harm? What if their understanding of my words makes me bad? Am I going to hurt someone if I let myself feel? Why do I struggle so much to trust myself, but other people just know? Why was I never guided or held? Why do I have to do it all for myself? Those are a bunch of the questions I was asking myself in a moment while my toddler was taking a nap that I just felt so scared. I was going down this spiral of constant self-monitoring and just worrying, like, what if I'm a bad person? What if I'm a bad mom? What if everything that I've worked towards is actually a lie? What if I'm not someone that actually wants to help people, but I'm doing it out of other ulterior motives, like to better myself, or I'm actually manipulating people. What if I'm not a good person, but I think I am, or I'm convincing myself that I am? And I was just spiraling so much down this very common thing that a lot of people with OCD struggle with, which is just moral scrutiny. Being so scared that you're a bad person and convincing yourself that you're bad, even whenever you're not. Constantly overanalyzing everything that you do to the point to where you don't even really know what's going on. And this is something that I've struggled with for a lot of my life, especially in like 2022 and 2023. I think that's whenever it was the worst. But the thing that I want to say is, despite me struggling with this during this time, I was also being very present with my body and what I was feeling. I was listening to my intuition. I wasn't spiraling. This time, like I would have done in the past, I was just feeling my emotions and trying to listen to what my body was trying to tell me, which is that I need to express this. I need to write about this. And then after I wrote all of that, I wrote another entry that says, I skipped a line and then wrote some more. I wrote, but I'm also really proud of myself for staying with this despite how loud my anxiety is, for listening to my intuition even though I struggle to trust it, for not spiraling, for letting my emotions be but not allowing them to take over, for writing this down even though I'm shaking, for letting myself rock back and forth, for not dismissing myself, for seeing myself. The moment of me writing this was so healing and so self-connecting, finally admitting what I was feeling but not spiraling into it. It's such an amazing skill that I didn't have for most of my life. Okay, I think I'm kind of getting into this point where I kind of just want to read journal entries. Let me look through and find some. Okay, here's one. This is from August 4th, 2025. I think the 8th number is August. It says, I'm sitting in the car and about to go into TJ Maxx. I'm anxious because it's hard doing things alone. I want to go in with a game plan to help me feel less anxious. I'm going to take wipes, a diaper, snacks for Clemmy. That way I won't have too much stuff. I'm wearing a cute outfit, and whether I think it's too much for TJ Maxx or not is too late now. I wouldn't have even thought that if Hunter was with me. I would have felt good because I love dressing up for small things. I have cute clothes and I want to wear them. I'm worried about people staring at me, but people don't actually care. And if they do think negatively of me for just walking around a store, they aren't someone who has a valuable opinion to me. I am wanting to look at home decor, Halloween stuff, and baby clothes, and although I love it when Hunter's with me, I don't need him to be here to enjoy myself. All I need to have fun is me. Clem is here. Clemmy's my daughter, which makes it a little less scary. People tend to leave you alone when you have a baby with you. I think I'm going to listen to the new Trying Not to Care fall episode while I'm in there. Trying Not to Care is a podcast that I really like. The world is huge. I'm not that important. Okay. As I was reading this, I kind of forgot about it. So it was new to me too. But I'm someone that really struggles with anxiety whenever I'm going in public. Because of social anxiety, I'm walking around and I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I look weird, or I'm not supposed to be there, or someone gives me one wrong look and I'm like, oh, I did something wrong, even though I'm literally just existing. And then also on top of that, I am someone that's very sensitive to bright lights and loud, crowded environments. So I can very easily have panic attacks and stuff like that in situations like that, social situations. And especially if someone comes up to me or tries to talk to me, or I have to talk to someone else. That's anxiety that I don't think I talk about a lot on this podcast. I remember whenever I was in college, if I would go into a store with my boyfriend, I almost never went to stores by myself. That was so terrifying for me. Still is, even to this day, just not as bad. I would go into a store and I would see like really pretty girls, and I would be so scared that they would, like, this is so dumb, but I was so scared that they would think that I wasn't a girl's girl, that I was a mean girl, because I think that was my biggest fear, that I was a mean girl and that I actually wasn't a girl's girl, because it was very popular to be a girl's girl during that time. And I would be scared, like, if they looked at me or made like a glance at me, they can read all of my intrusive thoughts. They can see everything that's wrong with me, and they would realize that I'm not a good person and I'm actually just a horrible person that they don't want to be friends with and they never want to spend time around. And I would just be so scared of that kind of stuff. So that, on top of a high sensitivity to my environment and social anxiety, meant that going to public places was almost impossible for me. Okay, let me find another one. This is really fun. Okay, this one was something that I think I wrote whenever, it was right before I made my episode about believing in yourself. I think I put that episode out or I think I ended up making that episode. I'm pretty sure I did. It was on August 5th, 2025. To me, believing in myself means to believe that I can have everything I want / is for me. It means that I get to choose what I want to do, that even if it takes work, I can reach my goals. And then I asked myself questions. Why did I used to not believe in myself? Because I had a lot of shame. I feared others' opinions. I didn't trust myself. I felt like I had to fit into a box. I didn't do enough behind the scenes to determine what my personal beliefs are. And the next one is, what did I feel? I felt like I wasn't good enough as I am, like I had to be like someone else in order to be liked. How did I start to believe in myself? I listened to podcasts that helped me change my mindset. I gained a growth mindset. I fake it until I make it and believe in myself and tell myself that it's true. I started focusing on trusting the process rather than diving in with no plan. So getting my thoughts out on paper first, understanding myself better, my values, what I want, what I don't want, stopped ignoring my intuition. I stopped focusing on others. Okay, and then like on the next page, it says, as a kid, I was forced to people please. Okay, I don't want to share that part. I felt unloved and like I didn't matter, like others mattered more than me. I felt like I was always second. I'm always second. Okay, a lot of this is talking about like personal experiences in my life. I don't want to share those things. I always make sure others are comfortable even if I'm not. How I feel doesn't matter as long as I don't hurt or disappoint others. And when I hurt someone else, I hate myself because I did something that they didn't like, which means that they disapprove of me. They disapprove all of me. I am bad if I don't please or gain the approval of others. I was always taught that I'm a mess up. If I make mistakes, I was making a fool out of myself. I'm too clumsy. I'm not allowed to mess up or be vulnerable because it's a weakness. I'm an emotional person and I was taught to hate that about myself. So I'm going to hide who I am to be loved. That's what I basically told myself. I am going to act like someone who isn't clumsy, isn't emotional, isn't loud, deep, loving, affectionate. I don't trust who I am. I don't know who I am. And that was just kind of me explaining why I don't believe in myself, me kind of trying to understand so that I could make that podcast episode. Okay, another one. Okay, this is another one for a podcast episode, which is the one about showing gratitude. It was done on August 25th of 2025. Being grateful is important to me because it reminds me of all of the good in my life. It helps me remain happy when I'm struggling. It reminds me of how little the things I get worked up about matter, such as things that make me sad and depressed and make me start to overthink. It reminds me that I get to choose what I focus on and that life isn't really that serious. I'm so perfectionistic. If things aren't perfect, I genuinely convince myself that they're bad, instead of just normal parts of life. Like with Hunter, my brain always believes that small things that don't matter determine how good or bad our relationship is. If he makes a joke I don't find funny in the moment, I think that means that we aren't a good match. If he's nice to me, I think it means our relationship is perfect. It's so black and white. I'm so hot and cold with him. That makes me feel guilty because he actually is a good guy and he deserves better. But he sticks by my side. He forgives me every time. I don't deserve that forgiveness, but I'm so grateful for it regardless. That makes me feel so sad because I do deserve that forgiveness. He's really good for me, not because he's perfect, not even close, but he and I help each other grow. We are both reflections of each other's things we need to change and work on. I'm so hot and cold. I'm so hot and cold. They see right through me. I see right through me. I was writing Taylor Swift's lyrics, I think. I try so hard, but it feels like I'm never enough for my high standards. I'm not good enough of a friend. I'm so perfectionistic about everything I do. Why? What did this to me? Why am I like this? Why does everything have to be so perfect? Who did this to me? Okay, and then I started talking about some situations with friends growing up where I felt like I was too much, or they ended up leaving, or I felt abandoned by those friends. I talked about this in a previous podcast episode. I think it was the one about being the oldest daughter. I talked about how I had a lot of experiences with friends who put me second or made me feel like I was weird or there was something wrong with me. Whenever I would fully be myself, they would leave. So that kind of taught me that I'm someone who is expendable and doesn't matter. So I kind of became that in my friendships so that I didn't get that hurt too. Okay, but right here it goes back to being grateful. So I said being grateful means noticing the small things that bring us joy, peace, and take away stress. This can be things that other people do for us, qualities we love of ourselves and others, opportunities given to us, small things that we find beautiful. And then I put why it's important. Being grateful is important because it helps us focus on the positive in life. And when we are actively looking for the positives more than the negatives in life, we are training our brains to be more positive, which makes us happier. When we are actively looking for the negatives, we are training our brains to be more negative. Positive people are happy and negative people aren't. That was such a black and white statement, but it kind of is true. Then I put fake it until you make it. Force yourself to notice things that you normally wouldn't. Make it a challenge for yourself to see how many things you can be grateful for. Okay, so that was my journal entry for that episode. Okay, this one's kind of cute. It was August 29th, 2025, and I wrote 20 things that I'm grateful for. So I have my family, my podcast, therapy, money from working, my apartment, my journal, movie nights with Hunter, personal growth, releasing shame, fall coming up, Starbucks, becoming a mom, self-understanding, Taylor Swift, my growing mind, my life experiences, shopping, overcoming self-destructive and self-sabotaging behaviors. I put me, and then in parentheses I put all of me, and then TV shows. Okay, I want to read this one because my handwriting looks really bad, so I was probably spiraling. I don't know what to write. I have nothing to say, but I am feeling really bad today and I need to get it out. Today wasn't too bad, but there's this negative feeling I have that won't go away. I felt anxious around my coworker, but I feel like I still handled it pretty well. But I do know that it probably would have been worse if I didn't write tonight. I feel stupid, like there's something wrong with me. I feel scared that mine and Hunter's relationship is bad. I feel like a bad mom sometimes. I feel like I'm not good enough when it comes to therapy. I worry that my therapist thinks I'm stupid. I feel anxious right now because I feel like I can't find the right words. Perfectionism is haunting me even when I'm by myself. I put an exclamation point. I struggle to stay present. Stupid and unworthy is how I'm feeling. I don't get why this always happens. Things are good, then my stupid brain ruins them. I think I just realized what started this. My podcast, I was late to putting it out again. I didn't feel like editing, so I didn't double check to make sure it was perfect. I uploaded it right away. I listened to it today and it was good, but a part of me felt like it wasn't perfect enough. That's literally the point of this episode. Like, it's not good at all, and people can see that I'm a fraud and I don't know what I'm doing. But that's not true. My podcast is good. I know what I'm doing. I trust myself. I am not worthless. I love me. This podcast is my purpose. It is perfect for me. See, it's so funny because I feel like I share a lot of things in my podcast, and it may seem like I'm constantly repeating myself, but it's because those are the things that I'm consistently struggling with over and over again. Oh my gosh, there's one that's like I was like spiraling so bad, but I can't. Okay, I will read this one. It is about a specific person, so I'll just say them instead of the person's name. I have an appointment with my psychologist tomorrow, and I'm actually really nervous because he told me to bring my journal and we can talk about what I've journaled about, but I haven't really felt the need to. Meaning I haven't felt the need to journal. I'm someone who journals like not all the time, not every single day, not weekly, just whenever I feel like I need to. Also, this was on September 8th of 2025. I know that that's fine that I didn't journal, but I feel like I'm letting him down. I feel like I'm not enough, like I'm a disappointment. But I also feel good. I'm stuck in between my healed self and my unhealed self, and I have been for a while. But slowly I'm getting more close to my healed self, the real me. I feel grateful for my past selves rather than hating on them. My mistakes no longer define me. I define me. I get to choose who I am. Others don't get to define who I am, because if they have the wrong idea of me, that's not my problem. It's theirs. And then this is when I start talking about the other person. They can believe whatever they want about me. I no longer care. I'm releasing that. I choose to be good despite what they think. They are no longer going to hold me back. They are no longer going to make me feel bad about myself. Their opinion does not define me. Their insecurities are not mine. They hurt themselves, but they no longer get to hurt me. I never want to live a life like theirs, so why should I care about their opinion? They are miserable and everything I never want to be. I choose to release them from my mind, and I don't wish the best for them. I'm not there yet. I hate you for how you treated me, for how you took everything I loved and crushed it in between your fingers. I was using Olivia Rodrigo's lyrics there. For how you decided I'm not worthy of respect, for how you decided my feelings don't matter, for how you made us enemies, for how you treated me. How you told everyone that I was the problem. I hate you for hurting me and continuously crushing me just because you knew that I would let you. For taking advantage of my vulnerability. You had the chance to help me grow, but instead you hurt me so much that I almost became you. In your head, I'm the problem. You will never look in the mirror. I hope you continue to hurt yourself as you watch me grow and thrive and no longer need you. You did so much damage just for you to still try to convince yourself that you're a good person and I'm not. I'm no longer the weakling you get to push around. I hope you heal for your sake. I hope you find happiness. I hope the little kid in you feels fulfilled at least once. I know you are hurting so much, but after what you did to me, I don't want to be the one that helps you heal. I hope to and wish to never see you again, because you have crushed my spirit way too many times and I will no longer allow that to happen to me. And that was a moment where I finally released anger and resentment towards a person. Well, not fully. That resentment is still there even now sometimes, but it was a moment in that journey. Okay, that's all that I'm going to share for this week's episode, mostly because I don't have a lot of other things to share. There are other things that are very personal that I don't want to share. A lot of them are very personal, but some that are too personal to share on a podcast for the entire world to hear, for people that are close to me to hear too. But I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For the journal prompt, let me go on my Notion page and look at the journal prompts that I have. Okay, so for the journal prompt of this week, think about something in your life that you could give up that would bring you more peace if you gave that thing up. Okay, I think that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next Sunday.